And then when you get into the interview, you go, let me tell you what's, I'm sorry, I'm crying, but I would not recommend the crying. It's like, let me tell you what's really going on. You know, I put some on my resume because I've been working for the Church of Scientology for the last 20 years, but I don't want to put that on a resume. Sorry. You know, it is true. If the IRS revokes Scientology tax exempt status, they might have to start doing some more heavy lifting on taking a look at some of these other guys as well.
Yes.
But the thing is, Scientology's already lost its tax exempt status once.
Yeah, when was that again?
I'm not going to get the date right, but like,
Can we go over that? Some fact checker out there.
it might have
hit us
been
in the
like
comments.
58 or something, 56 or something. The IRS revoked the status because they determined that L. Ron Hubbard was personally enriching himself from the funds. It was inurement.
Yeah,
not
lost this
bad.
exemption in 1957 and 1968. Yeah,
Both. There you go.
and then what? But something happened in. I'm getting it mixed up in my head. Something happened in '93 too, right?
93, they got it back most recently, and they've never lost it since.
Okay.
They got it back in
So they had it off from '67 to '93.
They did not have it.
Right.
Yeah.
And didn't they do like a blackmail campaign to do that?
Yeah, they filed like 2,000 individual lawsuits against individual IRS employees. Not against the IRS, but they would sue the actual employee.
It's kind of genius, not gonna lie.
I know. Why? When you're desk, like Miscavige is not a dummy.
No, gotta give it to him. So they get it back in '93. They've never lost it since.
Right.
And this is what Mark Bunker was really digging into that blew my mind. Like he's used his coffers to build like a real estate empire, and he'll buy up a lot of real estate, for example, in Clearwater, that's all in the same area, so it creates like a ghost town of Scientology in half the town.
That's right. It's intentional. And one of the reasons he does this is because as a tax-exempt organization, they're not allowed to just accumulate money and do nothing with it. Buying property is one of the permitted uses. And if Scientology says we need this building for our congregation, the IRS isn't really allowed to go in and be like, is there anybody even in the building?
Yeah.
And so it's the one thing that Miscavige can spend his money on. And technically it's not an expense. It's just taking assets from the cash column and putting it into the real, real assets column.
Yeah.
And it also helps him. It's one of the ways he's able to continue to convince Scientologists that they're still expanding throughout the world. Because he's like, look, we just had to get a big brand new building. But it's empty.
Yeah, and their population, as you said, has been dwindling since the peak in the 80s. It's down to, I think, like 40,000, something like that?
It's between 20 and 35,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Scientologists don't know that. Scientologists think there's millions of members. This is the crazy thing about what it's like to just be in a cult and how your thoughts are really controlled. Think of it this way. If in the late 80s, early 90s, Scientology was claiming 10 million members. Even if they've had zero growth, there's only about 150 Scientology organizations in the world. If there were only 5 million members, there would be over 70,000 Scientologists per org. Anyone who works in any one of these orgs could tell you they can't put together 200 Scientologists per org. They just don't think about it. They don't think about
It's math.
what I see in front of me. What does that mean if that's true everywhere? They just don't have that thought.
They're that deep.
I didn't have those thoughts when I was in. You're just too damn busy trying to do your job. You just don't. It sounds crazy.
Yeah. When you left, though, after that whole very traumatic ordeal, like now you're out in the real world. What'd you go do for a job right away?
I got into the hedge fund research. I was for the last 5 years I was in Scientology. I got into the hedge fund research space, and so that's what I continued to do.
Okay, so you at least like had that as an off ramp.
The fact that I was doing very well financially is probably what kept me from just completely melting down.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. But now you're out. You're getting hit with all this crazy realities in front of your face. Families getting ripped apart, and all that. You had vowed though to make yourself like an enemy with David Miscavige's worst enemy. What like worst nightmare? How were you planning to do that at first? Assuming you weren't first thinking YouTube right away.
Oh no. I had started my YouTube channel quite early on after leaving.
So that was plan
I didn't start uploading every day until like 2 years ago.
But that was plan A. You wanted to go straight to YouTube for this.
Yeah, I didn't have any other I didn't have any other idea of how I was going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's worked out pretty smart.
Yeah.
But like you also mentioned you work with people who are trying to leave Scientology and stuff like that. So in a way, you're kind of like a counselor to the other world, right?
Oh yeah. We're shuttling people from from the underworld into the light.
What's that like? Like when you get someone that I assume they're contacting you like covertly or something like that, like, hey, I want to leave. Like, what's the usual? Is there like any one usual impetus that makes someone that calls you want to leave?
These days, believe it or not, it's because they've been watching stuff on YouTube, and it's gotten them to start questioning things. Other than that, people usually start questioning things when horrible things happen to them that they thought could never have happened to them, like what happened to me and my family.
Yes,
I never thought that could ever happen. When it does happen to you, you're like, as it's happening, you're like, holy crap. Or if it happens to someone close to you that you know. It is Scientology that ends up turning its own members away. In most cases, it is Scientology's horrible treatment of its own members that ends up getting them to be like, is it just me? Or is there something wrong with this organization? Is it David Miscavige? Is it L. Ron Hubbard? Are there other people like me who are having these same problems? Now, these days, because there's so much information out there on YouTube, very often part of this equation is they found some videos of former Scientologists and they go, these guys don't seem like they're rabid and hateful and lying. Like, they seem to really know what they're talking about. They seem honest. They seem genuine. They don't seem to have an agenda. And holy shit, maybe I've got some thinking to do.
My eyes don't deceive me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that one of the things that can be hard for Scientologists on their path out is we haven't even really gotten into all the kind of Scientology terminology, and there'd be no point because it's incomprehensible. But it's very hard for a Scientologist to actually talk, especially who's considering, leaving. Yeah. You can't talk to any of your friends because they'll turn you in.
Yeah.
You can't talk to your partner because they'll turn you in. You can't talk to your kids. You can't talk to your parents. There's no one to talk to. So they end up looking online and like, oh my God. So oftentimes the first contact with someone who's leaving, it's very easy. They're just relieved to be able to explain what they've been going through to someone who actually understands what they're talking about.
So there's no, on that first phone call or meetup, however you do it, I mentioned.
Phone call.
Okay. They're usually not like scared and hesitant.
No, they
like,
are. They are. But once they start unloading,
it starts going,
it's like, oh my God, it's like just a waterfall.
Like a therapy session.
Yeah. Or a hydrant. Yeah.
Whoa. And how long, are there some that you really, it's a struggle for a while, they're on the fence, they don't want to go, and then
if they're on the fence, I tell them, hey, look, no one can twist your arm and convince you to make these kind of life changes where the stakes are this high. Yeah. I never try to talk someone out of Scientology. I try to listen to them and acknowledge them and talk to them, but I will never try to convince them to leave. Because, look, I stayed under the radar, which means I was sort of mentally out, but was still a Scientologist in good standing from 2009 to 2014. That's 5 years.
That's a long time.
So I'll be like, look, no, because I go, I'm never going to talk someone into losing their family. I'm never going to get on the phone with someone and be like, no, what you really should do is the thing that's going to make all of your family disconnect from you. It's like, if you're going to make that decision, it's going to be because you feel like you couldn't even live another day without doing this. So because the stakes are so high, that's like when I say I'd never talk someone out or convince someone to leave, that's what I mean. The stakes are so high. You can't try to make someone feel guilty for not leaving. I go, look, do whatever's best for you. Usually I say the first thing that you need to do is get a job that doesn't rely on Scientology. You have to, maybe Grant Cardone was right about one thing. You got to get your money right.
It's a hell of a place to make me laugh, but that was funny.
So like often, what happens, someone just needs someone they can talk to who actually understands what they're talking about. And then, yes, they'll always ask for advice. But my advice is always, what's right for you? What's your situation? What's your family situation like? What's your work situation like? What's your relationship situation like? And where would you like it to be? Like, and also, are you doing okay? Like, are you like suicidal? Are you like horribly depressed? Because I'm also not trying to be like, no, you should. Yeah. Like, they have to do what's right for them.
God, it's so heavy. There's so many variables too, and every person's different as well. But you guys are kind of like the Underground Railroad for Scientology.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, like, do you envision you and some of the other people who have have left Scientology and are helping people get out, do you envision like long term having a process where, you know, you could literally help people get placed into careers and do things like that could help them on the back end? So you do that already?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. The thing is, when people in the real world hear someone's Scientology story and that they're leaving and what they're going through, they want to give them a shot. They want to help them out.
That's great.
They want to go, you're doing the right thing. We're going to give you a shot. So like even on doing resumes and whatnot, some of the things that ends up happening is we figure out how to put a resume together where it doesn't say, I've been working for the Church of Scientology for the last 20 years. You put it together in a way that looks okay on a resume. And then when you get into the interview, you go, let me tell you what's, I'm sorry, I'm crying, but I would not recommend the crying. It's like, let me tell you what's really going on. You know, I put some bullshit on my resume because I've been working for the Church of Scientology for the last 20 years, but I don't want to put that on a resume. Sorry.
It's all right. Take your time.
Me getting emotional about this is just knowing how much people in the real world want to help people who are leaving Scientology.
It's awesome.
Oh, yeah, and it's what happened when I got declared. So I'd been working for this Scientologist in Scientology. He's famous. His name's Kurt Feshbach. And he and his brothers had the first $1 billion short-only fund back in the 80s. And they went broke, but he was still a famous Scientologist. And he opened up his hedge fund research business. He opened it back up about 5 years before I left Scientology. I have no high school education. I don't have an equivalency degree or nothing. But he taught me the business. And while working for him for 5 years, I got to know some of the biggest names in the industry, got to work with some of the biggest hedge funds in the industry, and made some really great contacts. And when the Scientology gave him the heads up that I was going to get declared so that he could lay me off before that so that I couldn't have a lawsuit against him for religious discrimination, right? So when he laid me off, I had no idea what I was going to do. Nothing.
Did he come to you and do it personally?
Him and his deputy. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, they just pretended it was just bullshit thing of, oh, his health is deteriorating and he needs someone to fully take over and you're not quite up to that. And it was a total bullshit story. Yeah. Okay. I never would have gone into business for myself. I didn't have some father figure, mentor, business. Like it's not, I wasn't wired that way. I didn't even consider it an option. I didn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
It was one guy in the hedge fund industry who said, you're too good at this to go off and do something else. I'm going to help you get your LLC set up. I'm going to introduce you to a fund that I think you can sign as your first client. And it'll be up to you to impress the hell out of them. And when I'm talking to these guys who are, running billion-dollar hedge funds, I don't try to shine them on. I mean, at this particular time, I was like, they'd be like, hey, how come you're not with Falcon Research anymore? And I'd be like, I can't remember if I was able to say this to them without getting emotional, but I said, I know that's a pretty normal question to ask. And I know you're not intending to go really deep on this, but in order to give you an honest answer, I kind of have to really tell you what's going on. And I have to tell them the Scientology story. And I have to tell them about my mom and my kids and my wife and my parents and her parents. And they would just be like, you've made the right decision. And we're gonna give you a shot.
That's amazing.
And then that it made everything possible for me. It's like I was making 10 times more money after getting kicked out of Scientology than I was when I was in doing the exact same thing. And it never would have happened. Now, I realize not everyone's going to have that exact same experience, but it's like I've already walked that walk. I know what it's like to have to explain something that many people would find embarrassing. But a lot of people might be embarrassed that they work for Scientology or wherever in Scientology. But it's like, if that's what it takes to get the person across from you to understand why you put some bullshit on your resume, but you tell them what's going on in the interview and be like, I'm going to work my guts out. Give me 2 weeks. You'll want me to run the place. And if not, I'll leave.
Powerful.
Get your foot in the door by being honest. about it, because people out there want to help people who are leaving Scientology.
That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great to hear that there's people out there like that. But also, and obviously, like, it worked out for you, and they're helping other people who you get to help now too from the other side. But, like, also, you know, I think it might be different if I were an adult when I got in and then went to leave later, because I might be real embarrassed about that. But if you're like, yo, I was born into this and I left, this is just how I'd be. I'd be like so empathetic of that, because it's all you ever knew. And I'd be like, more like those people were. More power to you. Like, great, hop on board, you know? Like, you want to help people like that because they never had a chance.
Right.
You know, like it's supposed to be a country of like second chances, but you're talking to people who never got a first one. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.